Hello, welcome to the Best of XAT series from IMS. My name is Kumud Choudhary, and today I'm going to guide you through some poem-based questions from XAT 2020. A lot of students are scared of poetry, and one of the reasons for that is that they feel that the questions are going to be tricky or difficult. But poem-based questions are no more difficult or easy as compared to the rest of the questions on XAT. There is an advantage to solving such questions. The advantage is that, at least in the last few years, the poems that have appeared in the XAT have been fairly short, which means that you can get through them faster. The disadvantage is that if you do not understand the poet's message or the main idea, then you will get the answers wrong. So today, we're going to approach poems the same way that we approach passages on any exam. We're going to understand the poem, and then we're going to follow option elimination in order to arrive at the right answer. Let's take this particular poem from XAT 2020. Again, I'm not really going to read it out to you. That I'm sure you can do on your own. So please take a look at the poem, and there are two questions that are going to follow from it. We're going to discuss one question at a time. Please take a look at the first question. Now here, it would be a good idea to pause the video and try to solve this question on your own. I'm sure you must have finished reading fairly quickly. So this was the advantage. You don't need to spend too much time figuring out the poem. However, even at the end of the reading, if you're not able to tell yourself what the message of the poet is, then you're in a bit of trouble. So what does this poem mean really? Well, the first part says that the world will end. How will the world end? Well, as a result of fire. The author is trying to say that some people feel that it will be fire that will end the world. Some people feel that it will be ice. What does the author feel? The author feels that fire, which is equal to desire, is more likely to end the world. But after that, the second part says that hatred, which is equal to ice, can also destroy the world. So on the whole, this poem is about the destruction of the world. The question is asking us, which of these is the author most likely to agree with? In order to answer this question, you need to remember the message of the poem. The message is that desire, which is equal to fire, is more likely to destroy the world, but ice can also do the job. Now let's take a look at our options one by one. The first option says, greed can destroy one's world. Well, the poet doesn't really mention greed, but could desire equal greed? Perhaps. Since it is a poem, one word could mean something else. So you always need to keep that in mind. When we know that fire is equal to desire, the poet does not really define whether desire means love or whether desire means greed. Hence, we should retain A. Let's look at the second one. Both desire and hate can create self-doubt. Well, this option should be fairly easy to eliminate because it talks about self-doubt, but self-doubt is not really an emotion that has been discussed in the poem. So B should be eliminated. The next option, hatred destroys what desire cannot. If you look at the last few lines, to know that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Ice means hatred. So yes, hatred can destroy whatever desire cannot. So we should retain C as an option as well. The fourth option, desire overpowers hatred to control humans. Now, when the poet says that desire is more likely to destroy the world as compared to hatred, we might think that D is the right answer. But then let's look at the entire option. Desire overpowers hatred. The poet has not really said that. It also does not say that it overpowers hatred to control humanity. If you cannot derive it from any particular line in the poem, then D cannot be our answer. So we should eliminate it. The last option says ambition is more powerful than envy. Fairly easy to eliminate this option because the poet does not talk about ambition or envy. So our two close options are A and C. How do we decide? Let's look at the question very carefully. Which of the following will the poet agree with the most? Both of these statements might seek the approval of the poet. But the poet clearly tells us right at the beginning that one of these elements is more likely to destroy the world as compared to the other. Fire or desire is more likely as compared to ice/hatred. So, between A and C, I should eliminate C and I should pick A. Again, it's a fairly close choice, but if you understand the author's message right at the beginning, then you should be able to arrive at this answer.
If you are going to take the XAT and are wondering what exactly to do over the next few days, we have a very special video for you, in which we have discussed the pattern of the test, the sectional cutoffs, the preparation strategy and the attempt strategy. You can visit the video by clicking on the I button above or from the link in the description box below. Happy learning!
Now let's take a look at the second question associated with the same poem. This question is a little bit tougher. It's also a bit unusual because it is asking us which is the most unsuitable title of the poem. Here it's very easy to miss unsuitable and think of it as suitable. So please pause the video. We've already discussed what the poem means and pick your answer. So I'm sure that you've given it your best shot. How do we decide on what is the most unsuitable title? Again, it has to do with the author's message as usual. What is this poem really talking about? The poem is talking about the destruction of the world either by fire, which is equal to desire, or ice, which is equal to hatred. The most suitable title would have to refer to these elements in order to be suitable. So how do I pick the unsuitable title? Obviously, it must not refer to any of these elements. That is the most logical way to think about this. Let's evaluate our options. The first option says the annihilation hypothesis. Now here, the vocab element does come into play. Annihilation is destruction. Hypothesis is some sort of a prediction as to what is going to happen. Now the poet is talking about how the world is going to be destroyed. So 1, in fact, would be a fairly suitable title. It cannot be our answer. We should eliminate it. Please remember, we're looking for something that will not fit the poem. Let's take a look at option 2. Love and detest, a tale of destruction. Well, option 2, in fact, is even better than option 1 in terms of suitability. Love could be equated with desire. Detest is definitely equal to hatred, and it also mentions the destruction of the world. So, option 2 would again be a suitable title. We have to eliminate it. The third option, how the world ends, well, this is very similar to option 1, the annihilation hypothesis. How the world ends is just a simpler way of saying the same thing. So we would have to eliminate option 3 as well. We're still talking about the destruction of the world, if you remember. The fourth option, destruction by fire and ice. A lot of us might feel that he's not talking about fire and ice literally. So the fourth option would be unsuitable. Nevertheless, fire and ice in the poem are symbols for desire and hatred. So option 4 again would not necessarily be unsuitable. It could still describe the poem accurately. We would have to eliminate it. Now we have only one option left. Emotional destruction of the world. Well, the author does mention emotions. He does mention destruction of the world. So why is option 5 unsuitable? It is the way that the words are placed in this option. The author is talking about the destruction of the world through emotion or due to emotion. That is not the same as saying emotional destruction of the world. If we say emotional destruction, it seems like we are talking about different ways of destruction or different types of destruction. Emotional, physical, spiritual. But that's not really the theme of the poem. Therefore, out of all of these options, option 5 would have to be the most unsuitable. Is it easy to solve this particular question? Definitely not. Nevertheless, it's a good bet overall if you have understood the author's message. So again, to sum up, poem-based questions are not necessarily to be avoided. If you understand the poem, you are likely to get at least one of the questions correct.